The first time I heard the banging on my door, I thought I was still dreaming. The second time, it was accompanied by shrill yelling, and that's when I knew something was wrong. I glanced at the clock. 3:02 a.m. My wife stirred beside me as I reached for the shirt draped over the chair. Then the doorbell rang. 3 sharp presses in rapid succession, followed by a woman's voice shrieking, "Open up! I've called the police." I opened the door in flannel pants, barefoot, half asleep, and came face to face with her. Karen. Hair in tight rollers, bathrobe flapping over her enormous frame, waving a thick HOA binder like it was a court summons. Her face was flushed with righteous fury, nostrils flared, and her left hand clutched a phone already mid-call. "You're in violation of community regulations," she shouted. Section 12A. No large commercial vehicles parked overnight on residential driveways. Took me a second to register what she was even talking about. Then I looked past her, down my driveway, to the black SUV idling silently at the curb. Unmarked. Government issued. "That's a government vehicle," I said flatly, voice still hoarse with sleep. "It's registered, and it's authorized to be here." Karen's eyes gleamed like she'd just sniffed out a felony. "I don't care what it is. It's against the rules. No one is above the HOA. She jabbed her finger at me. "You think you can just do whatever you want because you work for some department?" I could feel the heat rising in my chest. I tried to keep it level. "Karen, it's 3 in the morning. You could have left a note. Instead, you're trespassing, harassing my family, and abusing emergency services." She laughed. "You call this an emergency?" She scoffed. "You're the one who broke the rules. I've logged every violation. Your grass exceeded length regulations in March. Your porch light is too bright. And now this is exactly why this neighborhood is falling apart." Behind her, I saw the red and blue lights approaching. Great. She really did call 911. The cruiser pulled up quietly. 2 officers stepped out, one young, one older. They looked groggy, tired, and more annoyed than alarmed. Karen rushed to them like a courtroom plaintiff on her final argument. "Officers," she cried, "this man is defying the rules. I demand you issue a citation and have that vehicle towed immediately." The older cop gave me a look. I nodded calmly and stepped back inside for a moment. When I returned, I held it in my hand. My badge. Not my driver's license. Not my property deed. My FBI badge. I flipped it open in the porch light. The officers blinked. Karen froze mid-rant, her mouth hanging open like she'd swallowed a light bulb. The younger officer gave a low whistle. "Your bureau." I nodded. "Counterintelligence Division. That vehicle is issued and tracked by the federal government. It's not a violation. And this," I gestured toward Karen, "is a false emergency report." Karen looked like she'd been slapped with a bucket of ice water. "2 didn't know," she stammered. "You never disclosed." "I don't have to disclose my job to the neighborhood." I cut in. "This isn't a gated compound. It's a residential street with public access, and I followed every city ordinance. But you woke my family. You falsely reported an emergency, and you just tried to escalate something you don't understand." The older officer turned to Karen. "Ma'am, you called 911 for an HOA issue. That's not an emergency. That's misuse of emergency services." Karen's eyes welled up. Her voice cracked. "I was just trying to uphold the rules. He never submitted a parking request." The officer sighed. "That's not how this works." She turned back to me, her voice trembling now. "You don't have to press charges, do you?" "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know who you were." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something. She wasn't scared because she thought she'd made a mistake. She was scared because she finally realized her power wasn't real. I took a deep breath. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not going to press charges. But I am going to file a formal complaint with the city, and the HOA board will be getting a copy of this incident. I suggest you take a step back, Karen, because the next time you abuse your position, it might not be me answering the door. It might be someone who's not so forgiving." Karen's face collapsed. She turned without another word and waddled back down the driveway, arms stiff at her sides like she was holding in all the things she wanted to scream but now knew she couldn't say out loud. The officers offered me a nod, then followed her to finish the report. I shut the door behind me and exhaled. My wife was waiting in the hallway, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Did she really think she could get you evicted over a parked SUV? I shook my head. She didn't care about the SUV. She cared about control. By sunrise, the footage from my front porch security camera had already been saved, backed up, and clipped into a tidy little highlight reel. Karen's rant, her dramatic gesture toward the SUV, the moment the officers looked at my badge, and most damning of all, her crying retreat down my driveway. I hadn't planned to release it, not at first. I just wanted it in case she tried to spin the story, like she'd done so many times before to neighbors who dared challenge her self-appointed throne. But by lunchtime, whispers were already making rounds in the neighborhood forum. That Karen had called 911 on a federal agent. That she'd interrupted an operation, which wasn't true, but I didn't bother correcting them. That she tried to evict the FBI. The last one made me laugh out loud. Still, I said nothing publicly. I didn't post, I didn't gloat. I went back to work. I mowed the lawn again, this time with music playing loud from a speaker. I washed the SUV in broad daylight. My badge, as always, stayed tucked out of sight. The power wasn't in showing it was in knowing I didn't need to anymore. But Karen was unraveling. 3 days later, a handwritten letter appeared in my mailbox. She'd signed it on behalf of the HOA, even though I knew no one else on the board had approved it. The letter accused me of disrespecting community values, refusing to communicate with appropriate HOA leadership, and me favorite line, intimidating a senior citizen with government credentials. I scanned it, laughed, and handed it to my wife. Then I called in a quiet favor. A friend of mine, retired FBI now working in private legal consulting, reviewed the letter and raised both eyebrows. She's walking a legal tightrope, he said. HOAs can't discipline homeowners for their profession. But accusing you of intimidation with a badge? That borders on defamation. I nodded slowly. What happens if I let it play out publicly? He grinned. Well, it won't be pretty for her. That weekend, I attended the monthly HOA meeting for the first time in almost a year. Karen wasn't expecting me. She froze the moment I stepped into the room, every ounce of her smug posture draining like a deflating pool float. The room was packed. Neighbors who rarely showed up were now sitting at the edges, waiting to see what the big story was. Word had spread further than I imagined. I didn't make a scene. I waited for open comments. When it was my turn, I stood, looked Karen directly in the eye, and spoke calmly into the mic. I live at 42 Langston. Last Tuesday night at 3 a.m., Karen Pollard, acting without board approval, called 911 on me and falsely reported a rule violation over a legally parked government vehicle. She failed to verify the facts, attempted to initiate a forced removal without due process, and then attempted to smear me afterward through a handwritten letter filled with misinformation and personal attacks. The room was dead silent. I continued, I am a federal employee. My vehicle was not only legal, it was mission authorized and protected under Federal Operations Code. Karen's actions, if interpreted a certain way, could have been construed as interference. But I chose not to press charges. Until now. Karen gasped. You said you wouldn't. I held up the letter. This changed my mind. You made it official. You tried to claim I was abusing authority when in fact, I did everything in my power not to escalate. But you couldn't let it go. The board chair, a mild-mannered man named Glenn, cleared his throat. Do you have documentation? I handed him the security footage USB and printed photos. Time-stamped. Recorded audio. Statement from the responding officer. Karen started shaking. This is a setup. You're making me look like a villain. No, Glenn said quietly, reviewing the letter. You did that yourself. He turned to the rest of the board. Motion to suspend Karen Pollard from her position pending ethics review? Every hand rose. Even her closest ally Dolores hesitated for a second, then raised hers too. Karen's lip quivered. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair to the floor. "You're all going to regret this," she snapped. "He manipulated you. This whole neighborhood's gone soft." Someone from the back muttered, "At least it's not afraid anymore." Karen stormed out, pushing past people without apology, like she could shove her authority back into existence. The door slammed behind her like a gavel. The next day, I received apology notes from 3 board members. A few neighbors brought by cookies, thank you cards. One guy I'd barely spoken to offered to help repaint our fence. "She came after all of us in different ways," he said. "You just happened to be the one who didn't flinch." Weeks passed. The neighborhood changed. HOA policy was revised. Emergency response misuse became an automatic board expulsion offense. The clause was unofficially named the 3 a.m. rule. Karen's lawn, once the most meticulously policed on the block, grew a little wild. Eventually, her for sale sign went up. She moved out in silence. No goodbyes, no drama, just a heavy truck and a quiet ending. Today, our community is better. Still imperfect, still finding its rhythm, but free from fear. My SUV still parks in the driveway on mission days. No one blinks. The porch light is a little too bright, the fence a little too tall, but no one knocks at 3 a.m. anymore. Sometimes I catch new neighbors glancing at the front of our house and whispering to each other. I don't mind. I know what they're saying. That's the guy who stood up, who said no, who ended Karen's reign with a badge and a little bit of truth. So let me ask you this. Was I right to reveal my badge when I did? Or did I cross a line? Would you have done the same? Let me know what you think.